The Galactic Empire had not been challenged in 312 standard cycles, and even the word challenge felt like an indulgence rather than a truth. Conquest had become procedural. Resistance was catalogued, analyzed, and dissolved with the same detached efficiency used to regulate trade routes or recalibrate orbital defenses. Empires were not built on passion, they were built on inevitability. The Great Council Chamber reflected that belief perfectly. It was a structure grown rather than built, layers of bioarchitected stone and living crystal spiraling upward into a ceiling so distant it faded into darkness. Light came not from lamps but from energy veins pulsing slowly through the walls, responding to the collective biosignatures of the species present. The more powerful the civilization, the stronger the glow around its seeding ring. The center floated the imperial sigil, a massive geometric construct that rotated with precise slowness, symbolizing balance, order, and unbreakable hierarchy. Beneath it, representatives of nearly 4,000 sentient species observed, calculated, and waited. This was not a place of debate anymore. That era had ended centuries ago. The Council no longer decided if something would happen, only how efficiently. The matter of the day was Earth. Most members of the Council regarded the name with mild disinterest. Humanity was filed under emerging civilizations, Class C, technologically competent but socially volatile, capable of producing impressive bursts of innovation followed by periods of internal collapse. They were known for paradoxes, cooperative yet combative, empathetic yet destructive, idealistic yet brutally pragmatic when threatened. The Empire had allowed them a diplomatic seat less out of respect and more out of habit. Granting observation status smoothed absorption later. The humans were expected to fracture on their own within a few centuries regardless. Empires had patience measured in millennia. When the human representative entered the chamber, there was no ripple of reaction. She walked alone and a guard followed her. No defensive drones hovered nearby. No ceremonial attire marked her as important. She wore neutral fabrics designed for comfort rather than intimidation, colored in subdued tones that blended easily with the ambient lighting. Her pace was unhurried, neither deferential nor confrontational. She moved like someone entering a familiar room rather than the most powerful political chamber in the known galaxy. Several council members noted this with mild curiosity. Others flagged it as a cultural misunderstanding. Humans often failed to grasp the symbolic language of power. She stopped at the designated position for non-core species envoys and waited an OBOW.NO proclamation to NO attempt to draw attention. The Imperial High Speaker, a massive being of layered chitin and luminescent membranes, initiated the session. Its voice resonated across the chamber without amplification, carried on harmonic frequencies that translated automatically for all present. The Empire acknowledged the arrival of Earth's representative. Formalities were observed. Protocols were recited. Historical summaries were displayed across the shared cognitive lattice. Humanity's rise from planetary conflict to limited interstellar travel unfolded in clean, compressed data streams. Wars, recoveries, breakthroughs, collapses, unity movements, fragmentation, reunification. A predictable pattern. The Empire had seen it thousands of times. What was less predictable was the human woman's expression as the summary played. She did not look impressed or defensive. She did not attempt to interject or correct the record. Her face remained composed, eyes attentive, posture relaxed but aligned. She absorbed the narrative of her species as if listening to an old story she already knew by heart. When the Imperial speaker concluded, the tone shifted subtly. The Empire expressed concern over Earth's rapid militarization, concern over unauthorized expansion beyond permitted trade corridors, concern over repeated violations of containment advisories issued for the protection of humanity and neighboring systems. The language was neutral, dispassionate, almost kind. The Empire did not threaten. It did not accuse. It simply explained consequences as one might explain gravity. The woman diplomat listened without interruption. When it was her turn to speak, she did not begin immediately. She paused, just long enough for several council members to register discomfort. Silence was unusual here. Most envoys rushed to fill it, afraid of appearing uncertain. She was not. Her voice, when she spoke, was calm and unremarkable in tone. There was no attempt at rhetorical flourish. Earth acknowledged the Empire's concerns. Earth valued peace. Earth had no intention of destabilizing the region. She used language so carefully measured it almost disappeared into itself. Some members of the Council relaxed. This was familiar. Emerging civilizations always sounded like this at first. Gratitude, assurances, willingness to cooperate. But then she asked a question. It was not confrontational. It was framed as a request for clarification. She asked how many independent species the Empire currently governed by force rather than treaty. The chamber stilled, not dramatically, but perceptibly. The question was not forbidden, but it was unnecessary. The answer was publicly available. The Empire did not hide its conquests. The imperial speaker answered without hesitation. Thousands. The woman nodded slowly, as if confirming a calculation. She asked another question. How many of those species had once been offered protective oversight similar to what Earth was now receiving? There was a fractional pause before the answer came. Most. Still no reaction from her. No visible judgment. She asked a third question. How many of those species had voluntarily remained within the Empire once technological parity was achieved? The answer was fewer. The Council exchanged subtle signals. Data tags passed quietly between intelligence representatives. This line of questioning was unusual. Not dangerous, but inconvenient. Humans were known for asking inefficient questions. Emotional ones. Philosophical ones. The Empire responded anyway. The woman thanked them and said nothing more. No demands. No objections. No resistance. To the observers, it looked like compliance. After the session ended, internal analyses circulated rapidly. The consensus was reassuring. Earth's envoy was intelligent but ultimately constrained by her civilization's limitations. Curiosity did not equate to defiance. The questions were likely a domestic performance, gestures meant to placate Earth's internal factions resistant to integration. The recommendation was to proceed. Pressure would be applied gradually. Access limitations. Resource tariffs. Strategic restrictions framed as safety measures. Earth would adapt, as all others had. The woman diplomat returned to Earth without incident. Months passed. During that time, the Empire observed increasing human activity. Not militarily aggressive, but reorganized. Supply chains shifted. Civilian infrastructure expanded in patterns that did not align with economic projections. Communications traffic intensified, but encryption protocols remained within acceptable civilian ranges. Empire analysts flagged it as internal consolidation. Humans were prone to overreaction. Fear often drove inefficient resource allocation. The Empire adjusted containment measures slightly. Earth responded not with protest, but with silence. No appeals. No escalation. Another council session was convened. The woman returned, same attire, same posture, same calm. The first ship died without ever realizing it had been attacked. Its reactors did not explode. Its hull did not rupture. There was no dramatic flash of light to mark the moment. 1 second it existed, drifting confidently at the center of the Empire's forward formation, and the next it simply went dark. Power drained as if reality itself had decided the vessel was no longer worth sustaining. The Empire commanders assumed it was a malfunction. Then a second ship went silent. Then a third. No weapons fire was detected. No energy spikes registered on sensors. The fleet tightened formation, protocols activating automatically. Internal diagnostics flooded command channels, each ship reporting minor irregularities that did not, individually, justify alarm. Individually, nothing was wrong. Collectively, everything was failing. Communications lag increased by fractions of a second, then whole seconds. Targeting solutions became sluggish. Navigation systems required manual confirmation where automation had once sufficed. The commanders barked orders, their confidence unshaken but their irritation growing. Fear, after all, was expected to make enemies erratic, not systems. The realization came too late. Human space was not defended like Empire territory. There were no massive battle stations announcing dominance. No intimidation fleets waiting in plain sight. Defense was woven into the environment itself, embedded in civilian infrastructure, commercial traffic lanes, and innocuous-looking satellites that had been in place for generations. The Empire did not understand redundancy the way humans did. Every system they relied upon was mirrored, triplicated, and isolated. When one failed, another took over. When two failed, a third waited silently. The Empire's systems, built on the assumption of unquestioned dominance, had never needed such caution. Human systems assumed failure as a baseline. The first shots of the war were not fired from cannons or energy lancers. They were lines of code, algorithms unleashed across distances the Empire believed secure. Logistics databases corrupted themselves. Fleet synchronization degraded. Command hierarchies lost coherence as priority channels rerouted without explanation. Fear crept in, subtle and unwelcome. The Empire commanders demanded answers. They ordered countermeasures. They accused subordinates of incompetence. None of it helped. Every correction introduced new errors. Every attempt to isolate the problem revealed that the problem was everywhere. Then human ships appeared. They did not arrive in grand formations. They did not announce themselves. Small, fast vessels slipped into sensor range only briefly before vanishing again. They did not engage directly. They nudged. They disrupted. They struck supply lines instead of warships, targeting fuel tenders and communication relays rather than weapons platforms. This was not how wars were fought, at least, not wars the Empire recognized. The first exchange of fire was almost accidental. An Empire cruiser, its sensors degraded, misidentified a human vessel as debris and collided with it at high velocity. The human ship shattered instantly. The Empire vessel suffered internal damage severe enough to force a retreat. The Empire celebrated the kill. They should not have. The human ship had not been armed for combat. It had been there to map sensor blind spots. Its destruction confirmed the data. Within minutes, 3 Empire cruisers lost propulsion simultaneously. Their reactors entered emergency shutdown, safety systems triggering in response to conditions they could not classify. No human weapons were visible. No attacks recorded. Panic spread faster than any broadcast. The king was informed that the demonstration invasion was experiencing delays. He was not concerned. Delays happened. Resistance was expected. Fear took time to fully bloom. He ordered the fleet to proceed and authorized limited planetary strikes if necessary. The humans needed to see what defiance cost. The order never reached half the fleet. Communication nodes failed in cascading waves. Relay stations went offline. Command signals arrived out of sequence or not at all. Entire squadrons drifted without direction, their crews staring at silent consoles that had never failed them before. That was when a message arrived. IT did not interrupt Empire channels. It did not hijack them. It appeared quietly, embedded within existing data streams, readable only once systems had degraded enough to stop filtering it out. The human woman appeared again. She looked exactly as she had before. No change in posture. No visible urgency. The background behind her was unchanged, as if time itself had respected her stillness. "You are experiencing the early stages of human war doctrine," she said. Her voice carried not triumph, but explanation. She spoke of asymmetry, of fighting systems instead of soldiers, of removing the enemy's ability to coordinate before removing their ability to resist. She explained that humans had learned, through painful repetition, that winning battles meant little if wars dragged on. Efficiency was mercy. The Empire commanders demanded she stop. They threatened annihilation. They invoked the king's authority. She did not respond to the threats. She addressed the king directly. "You believed fear was a weapon," she said. "You were wrong. Fear is a signal. It tells us where to apply pressure." The broadcast ended. What followed was not a massacre. It was a collapse. Empire fleets found themselves unable to maintain formation. Automated systems locked them out, misidentifying their own crews as intruders. Supply ships ran out of fuel because logistics algorithms no longer recognized valid delivery routes. Medical systems failed to sync across ships, forcing crews to treat casualties manually for the first time in generations. Human ships struck when resistance peaked, not before. They waited until Empire crews were exhausted, frustrated, and uncertain. Then they disabled engines. They cut power. They boarded vessels whose crews were too disoriented to fight effectively. Human soldiers did not shout battle cries. They moved with practiced coordination, their fear acknowledged and controlled. They did not hate their enemies. Hate clouded judgment. They neutralized threats, secure objectives, and withdrew. Captured Empire officers were treated for injuries. This confused them more than violence ever could have. Across the galaxy, subject species watched in disbelief as the Empire's terror failed to inspire obedience. The myth shattered. If the Empire could be resisted, It could be challenged. If it could be challenged, it could be dismantled. Rebellions ignited not with fire, but with refusal. The king's court grew frantic. Advisors argued. Generals contradicted one another. Orders overlapped and conflicted. Fear, once so carefully wielded, turned inward. No one wanted to be the one blamed for failure. The king demanded escalation, though he ordered the annihilation of a human world. The weapons never fired. The command authorization required confirmations that never came. Systems designed to prevent misuse now prevented use entirely. The empire had optimized itself for obedience, not adaptability. Humans exploited that flaw mercilessly. The human woman stood before a different chamber now, though it looked much the same. She authorized the final phase not with a speech, but with a signature. Operation names were not meant to intimidate. They were meant to clarify intent. This one meant end state. The Empire's capital world did not burn, its power grids failed in sequence, rolling blackouts cascading across continents. Orbital traffic halted. Atmospheric regulators shut down. Not catastrophically. Precisely. Enough to stop life, not enough to end it. The king watched his empire dissolve from a chamber that had once symbolized invincibility, though he demanded an audience. The human woman agreed. They met not on a battlefield, nor in a throne room, but in a neutral environment constructed specifically to remove advantage. No guards. No weapons. No elevation differences. Just two figures seated across from one another. The king expected execution, though he demanded it. The human woman declined. Execution, she explained, would end his story too quickly. It would also reinforce the myth that power ended with death. Humans had learned that removing symbols mattered more than destroying bodies. Instead, she told him what would happen. The empire would be dismantled. Its governing structures dissolved. Its archives opened. Its crimes documented. The fear-based systems it relied upon would be removed, replaced with oversight designed by those it had oppressed, though he would live to see it. Fear crossed his face then, genuine and unfiltered. She did not take satisfaction in it. This, she said, is what absolute wrath looks like. Not rage. Not revenge. Responsibility carried to its conclusion. When it was over, humans did not claim the Empire's territory. They did not crown themselves rulers. They withdrew, leaving behind frameworks, not flags. The galaxy changed. Civilizations that had lived in terror learned what it meant to choose their own future. New alliances formed, not based on fear, but on mutual interest and shared memory. Humans returned to their space, quieter than before. The woman general disappeared from public record. No monuments were raised. No songs composed in her name. That, too, was intentional. Across the stars, a new understanding took hold. Humans were not fearless. They simply refused to let fear decide for them, and no empire ever forgot what happened when they tried.